Okay, so Kristaps Porzingis is a Boston Celtic, but not in the way they announced it earlier. I had talked about, recorded, and mostly edited a video revolved around the fact that I was happy the Clippers had gone and got a true point guard in Malcolm Brogdon, and I thought Kristaps Porzingis would be a decent fit on the Celtics, barring no injury, and that the Wizards were just doing whatever. I have no idea what the Wizards are doing other than just trading their two best stars for essentially nothing. And then halfway through editing, I went to go hoop. And while I was there, it was announced that the Kristaps Porzingis trade wasn't happening and that it was falling apart. And I was like, well, I guess that video is scrapped now. But now that video is scrapped, but it's still happening anyway. Kristaps Porzingis is a Boston Celtic, but now Tingus Pingus has opted into his $36.1 million player option. And not only that, but the Grizzlies came out of nowhere and just decided to join the trade in the same role that the Clippers were joining the trade, but they're giving up Tyus Jones and he's going to the Wizards. But now Boston is giving up Marcus Smart to go to the Grizzlies, which is a crazy good pickup for the Grizzlies. I can barely even process what's going on. Like, where do I even start? Do I talk about the Porzingis fit for the Celtics? Do I talk about how the Celtics just gave up one of their very important starters and character guys in the locker room? They gave him up for Kristaps, and yeah, I'm just kind of shocked. I have not been alive very long, and I've not been conscious enough to pay attention to the NBA for very long, all things relative. But I've never seen a trade fall apart entirely and then still happen again, but in a different way. Even though I'm sure that's happened before, it's never been public knowledge. You know what I mean? It wasn't announced and then suddenly backtracked, and then another team jumps in the place of another team, and then a 3-team trade is somehow orchestrated in pretty much the last second. Let's start with Kristaps. Kristaps Porzingis last season averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, as well as shooting 49.8% from the floor, 38% from 3, actually 38.5% from 3. I'll give him the little percentage boost. And he was playing in 65 out of the 82 games. And that number could have been higher if he wasn't diagnosed with a mystery illness for the last 5 games of the season, when the Wizards would benefit from tanking anyway. I'm just going to kind of rehash some points from the video I recorded earlier, but I think this fit on the Boston Celtics is a good fit. But now, where does that displace Robert Williams? Are you going to trade Robert Williams and move on and just let Kristaps be your centerpiece? Because Robert Williams is pretty injury prone, but however much Robert Williams is injury prone, Tingus Pingus is just as much. I mean, that was the reason the Mavericks got rid of him. He just couldn't stay on the floor. Not only that, but Rick Carlisle wasn't using him correctly, and he really just didn't fit in with that Luka Porzingis pick and roll like we thought he would. And from time to time, he would just have abhorrent shot selection. But apparently, according to Wizards fans, I didn't watch a whole lot of Wizards games this season because why would I? But the games I did catch, he seemed to be playing with more confidence, and his post-ups looked miles better than they did for the Mavericks, because when he was posting up for the Mavericks, you knew exactly what he was doing. He was not spinning or anything. He was turning over his right shoulder and shooting a jump shot over whoever was guarding him. And it was the most frustrating thing ever, because he could have just ran over like half the players that were playing on him. Like, they were putting wings on Kristaps, and he wasn't running them over. He wasn't making them pay. He was still taking these annoying ass fadeaway mid-rangers that he just didn't knock down at a consistent percentage. Why do you think when we played the Clippers for the second time in the playoffs, his ass just sat in the corner? Because Rick Carlisle was sick of it. But now, him being the third option on the Celtics behind Tatum and Brown, he has much less weight on his shoulders, so he doesn't have to go and get buckets every single possession. He can just be a threat from outside, like he should be. He doesn't have to carry an offensive load like a second co-star. He doesn't have to do that, and he could be good enough to do that. I mean, he proved that for the Wizards this season, but were the Wizards very good? No. They were 35-47 and really didn't even sniff the playoffs. So he can be a second option on a team that doesn't have crazy huge playoff aspirations, in my opinion. Obviously, the Wizards roster is not constructed very well around him anyway, but that doesn't matter anymore. Now he plays for the Celtics, a team who has just a laundry list of great role players and players that can mentor him. I mean, him playing with Al Horford is going to do wonders for his defensive positioning and not fouling, because he used to foul way too much as a Maverick. And like I said earlier, what do you do with Robert Williams at this point? Does that mean Robert Williams is on the move, or do you keep him and bring him off the bench? Time Lord is way too good of a player to be coming off the bench consistently. He's way too good of a rim protector. There's a team out there that would trade so much for Robert Williams right now, and by a team, I mean the Dallas Mavericks. But it's not just the Mavericks who would come out guns blazing with role players and picks to get Robert Williams. It would be a bunch of other teams. I mean, he's a young rim protector. There are not a lot of those guys wandering around. Good young rim protectors, I'll put it that way. But let's talk about how we went from Malcolm Brogdon going to the Clippers to Marcus Smart now going to the Grizzlies. I mean, that's an insane turnaround, because if you're the Celtics, you obviously want to give up Malcolm Brogdon before you give up Marcus Smart. I mean, obviously, it meant so much to the Celtics to get Kristaps Porzingis that they were willing to trade pretty much kind of a centerpiece of the Celtics culture right now. Marcus Smart is the engine that makes the Boston Celtics play as hard as they do. He plays with a lot of heart, a lot of passion, and he is willing to take big shots. He may not make them all the time, but he's willing to take those big shots. I mean, he won Defensive Player of the Year last year, and all the Grizzlies had to give up was Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is a great player. He's a great backup point guard and will make a good, solid point guard for the Wizards. But Marcus Smart is obviously more valuable than Tyus Jones. I mean, the Grizzlies walk out of this situation incredibly happy because Marcus Smart is a combo guard who can play beside John Morant, and he'll play passionate defense. And not only will he do that, but he will be an excellent leader for a Grizzlies team that probably needs a new face and a new leader in the locker room right now. Side note, isn't Marcus Smart everything that Dillon Brooks is trying to be? They pretty much just got Dillon Brooks, but better. I mean, Ja is suspended for the first 25 games next season. They need a guard to come in and run the offense, and Tyus Jones was that. He was great at it too. He ran the offense in the playoffs whenever John Morant was hurt, and he did a good job of it. I'm not saying Tyus Jones is a bum. He's not a bum by any means, but he's not Marcus Smart. Tyus Jones has not won a Defensive Player of the Year. If the Clippers of all teams wouldn't take Malcolm Brogdon, and they have two of the most injury-riddled stars in all of the NBA, there has to be something wrong with Malcolm Brogdon to the point where they were turned off by the fact that he was going to have to fight back from injury. So if that's the case, the Celtics are essentially putting all their eggs into a Malcolm Brogdon basket that was just denied a trade because he was considered damaged goods. Another side note, this point is kind of missing the mark because they also have Derek White, who could be a primary ball handler, and Jaylen Brown can also be a primary ball handler, so I don't know. And I guess you could turn the keys over to Malcolm Brogdon because, yes, he is a good enough player to run that Celtics offense. I mean, he was the 6th man of the year. Obviously, he's good enough to start in the NBA and do it very well. He played very well in the minutes that he played for the Celtics in the playoffs. It's weird. Why would the Clippers deny a trade for Malcolm Brogdon because of an injury if they weren't super concerned with the way he would come back? If Malcolm Brogdon was seriously considered damaged goods, now, well, what did the Celtics do exactly? I really don't think it's that big of a deal, but it's kind of odd. And it now led to Tyus Jones being a Wizard, Marcus Smart being a Grizzly, which I feel like fits him pretty well. And it finally led to Tingus Pingus being a Celtic. What a weird set of events. Anyway, I mean, this is not going to be the last post I make in the next 24 hours. I'm going to talk about the draft, and I'm sure there'll be a ton of trades, and it'll be entirely chaos, or maybe it'll be pretty mundane. Who knows? Anyway, I'll see y'all tomorrow, probably. Have a good one.
What the